Hi everyone. It's fantastic to be here with two brave and brilliant YouTube content creators and activists. I think this is a really brilliant panel to follow the fantastic panel we just heard. For those of you that aren't aware, YouTube content creators are disproportionately targeted by deepfake abuse, and the breeding ground for that abuse is the exact forums that were just being discussed. I would love to introduce my two panelists on this talk. First of all, Gibi is a YouTube creator who's been producing ASMR since 2016. She's made over 1,000 videos now and has almost 5 million subscribers. In November 22, she became the first ASMR artist to speak out against deepfake abuse, posting a video on her social channels talking of her experience and demanding a change of attitude in deepfake abuse content, a video which went viral. She also featured in our documentary, Another Body, for those who haven't watched it. And with GB, we have Jinx, who is also a content creator who's best known for her ASMR videos on YouTube, as well as her cosplays on Instagram. And she's been making those since 2018. She now has over 500,000 subscribers. And in addition to her content creation, she works to make environments safer for fellow creators. So I first of all would love to say thank you so much for joining us. And because I can imagine that there are some people in the audience who aren't totally familiar with what you do, could you explain to us what ASMR and cosplay are?
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for having me. It's literally such an honor to speak on the in a summit filled with such articulate, lovely people. So yeah, I do ASMR for a living. ASMR is actually it's technically a physiological phenomenon, but it's also the name of a genre, and its home is mostly on YouTube. But nowadays, I think you'll find it on pretty much all platforms. ASMR, it's a very pleasant, relaxed feeling. So ASMR videos typically aim to help people relax. A lot of people fall asleep to them. Um, and yeah, Jinx, I'll let you talk about what cosplay is.
Uh, Thank you. I want to say thank you so much for having me as well. I'm really excited to be a part of this panel and speak on these issues. But yes, so cosplay is pretty much a form of art in which you can dress up as fictional characters from different parts of media, and then you do wigs, costuming, makeup, a whole thing. So and it's a way to express your love for sort of media and yeah.
Very fun.
Mhm.
Thank you for that. And as I sort of mentioned in the introduction, the ASMR community and other forms of online content creators are disproportionately targeted by deepfake abuse. I mean, I should mention it's the female content creators. This doesn't really happen to the men. Why do you think that online content creators are being targeted disproportionately? And GB, could you start us off?
Sure. I think I became aware of what deepfakes meant about 7 or so years ago when someone sent me one of myself. And the technology was very new. So it worked the best when you had a lot of high definition, long form, straight on video of people's faces. And because of the nature of ASMR content, those videos tend to be longer in length. They're for relaxation, they're for sleeping. It ended up being the perfect fodder for the software that people were using. Um, and I also think that that just kind of in combination goes with the over sexualization of women in online spaces that we have seen historically. ASMR in particular is constantly misunderstood as something that's sexual. A lot of ASMR videos include close up speaking, eye contact, and kindness, which to me is really beneficial parts of ASMR. But unfortunately, those aspects can be abused and taken the wrong way by viewers when they decide to cross a boundary. Um, and so I think because I had already vehemently expressed that I had no interest in being sexualized in that way, some people decided to just take it upon themselves to get that content anyway.
Uh, of course, and it seems to be like the sad truth that this is really experienced across the board. And Jinx, I wonder if you could speak to um how some of your male colleagues have sort of responded to this, to the disproportionate targeting of women in this space, but not the men.
I am friends with a few fellow male creators in the community, and sometimes when telling about the horror stories of what it is just to, the daily life of being a woman creating content online, they often are appalled when I tell of the things that I have received myself or seen that other fellow creators have received. And they are always just so shocked. They are like, I never received those messages. I've had fellow colleagues, and I know Gibi has also said this as well too, but have had fellow colleagues receive messages about us to ask personal questions because they believe that another man will sort of give them the in or something on us. And it's just so interesting that I've, had them reach out and, be like, hey, had this creepy person ask me about you, be on the lookout. So they usually don't receive the same treatment as women in this industry.
No, of course. I mean, I really can imagine that. And I do think that there's a public perception that women are who are in the public eye must have a sort of thicker skin. But of course, this form of abuse still like impacts everyone profoundly who experiences it. And so I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about how deepfake abuse has impacted you emotionally and psychologically. And GB, you could start us off on this one.
It makes me angry, of course. I have a lot of disdain for the people who are creating this synthetic imagery against people's consent. I feel very protective and defensive for other creators who go through the same thing. A lot of the time, my anger turns into sadness, sometimes like feelings of worthlessness, anxiety. And honestly, I think my relationship with men in general has been severely compromised since being professionally active online. If I look back in the past, 7 or 8 years, I just kind of completely lost my base trust. It's just a very exhausting topic to think about, talk about, fight against, educate people on. So I'm very tired of it, but I would say mostly angry.
Of course. And I mean, we see your anger so brilliantly channeled into that video, which created the reverberations it did back in 2022. Um, I would love for you to actually speak a little bit on both of you to speak on, the effect it had sort of speaking out both on you as individuals and on your community. And Jinx, you spoke so fantastically about how seeing GB sort of speak out gave you the confidence to acknowledge your own feelings. And I would wonder if you could like elaborate on that, like seeing the sort of how seeing others sort of speak out against this abuse emboldened you to sort of act upon it and articulate how you had been impacted by this.
I think that, or I know when GB spoke out, I felt like there was a major push for change. And I would say I personally was scared to speak out because usually the reaction that I receive, if I do talk about something that I feel like is unfair, for me as a creator, just based on the content that I do, I usually get backlash and saying, I am asking for it. I signed up for this. I, am supposed to just suck it up and, go through it. And I think seeing GB speak out really gave me that like you are not alone. And since, you know, Gibi also does have a larger platform, and I know that's even scarier to speak out because you have a lot of voices then coming at you that can say things. I was like, why am I, you know, why am I not? And it kind of felt like, you know, like you said earlier, GB, that you felt, you know, you kind of feel protective over other people in the community. It did feel like I had somebody kind of like, you know, holding out a hand and being like, come on, you know, now is the time to talk. You're not alone. So I, it's just, it's so difficult. I think people think, you know, you can say stuff online and it should be easy, you know, just to say things. It's so scary. I really want people to understand that it is scary to speak out about it. And GB is such a, you know, I can't speak highly enough about, you know, you speaking out. Seriously. And let me not get emotional about it. But it really it felt like a friend in all of this. And it meant so much. I can't, the words don't even begin to express how much it meant. So it's truly a really big moment for this community and for you know, targeting deepfake abuse and, you know, trying to have it stop.
And you know, and it's incredible, you know, you two are two of like a handful now of ASMR artists who have spoken out about this. Yeah, this is really a, you know, an epidemic within the community, or, you know, the fan base of the community. Um and I wonder, you know, it's before you chose to speak out, or even continuing now, is like the knowledge that this content is out there, this abusive content is out there, and the creators of this content are out there and able to harass you in all forms of ways. Does that sort of change the way that you behave online? Has this shaped the sort of the career that you feel like you can have online, or have you sort of felt totally free to like act and upload content in the way that you wanted? GB, you could take this one.
Sure. Yeah. No, I think it absolutely shapes my behavior. It's made me lean into presenting myself very pointedly to the audience that I appreciate having. Um, every individual creator is going to have different boundaries on what they're comfortable with and what they appreciate. So, I, unfortunately, I found that I have to lean even farther away from my normal boundaries so that it's less likely for people to cross them. If that makes sense. So I don't. With my videos, I've had to edit out or reshoot parts that I'm afraid somebody will take it the wrong way, or it's very difficult to try to juggle everything that somebody could use, and even when you try your hardest, it doesn't really matter in the end. So sometimes it can feel quite exhausting that way. Um, but yeah, it's definitely changed how I interact with my audience as well, which is definitely a shame because it's one of my favorite parts of creating content. Of course, is the community. You want to be able to interact with all the lovely, amazing people online, and it sucks to have to try to kind of wade through that daily.
And I do wonder, like, you know, were you aware of this when you know, began your career, that this was going to be the case? And I, you know, as this problem has exploded over the last 8 years, I wonder, have you been in contact with any young fans who want to sort of follow in your footsteps but feel afraid or like deterred from doing so because they don't want to put themselves in the line of fire? And do you think that this is limiting the opportunities of young women pursuing careers online, like you and you two have done?
Of course, it shuts people out. It's it's horrendous. It's just like a continuation of kind of how women have been treated in the workplace historically. And it wasn't something that I went into. I was excited to create content. It was not in my front of mind, and now it's constantly in front of mind, and it is the first thing that I tell people who express interest in it because I just don't want anyone to be caught off guard. And I think that that is what's scary to me, is that at least I felt like, although this is a reality that like I don't want to accept and I don't want to live in, at least I felt at least a little bit prepared, and now I can kind of educate people, hey, if you're going to be in the public sphere, this is something that's going to happen to you 100%. But it makes me really scared to think about the people who aren't prepared for this, and I think that's where the situation is incredibly dire.
Yeah, I would agree. And I definitely feel like what I kind of believed I was prepared for was like, oh, you'll get creepy comments. You know, you can filter out comments, you can put specific words in there, phrases, whatever. I was not prepared for my image to be stolen. That's not at all what I was prepared for. And it's even sad though that comments are the first thing that it's like, oh, it's the internet, you know, you should expect it. You're a woman on the internet, you're gonna get them. That's what everybody like tells you. And you're like, okay, you know, you're like, I could probably toughen up, put up with this, you know, I'll filter it, it'll be okay. And then, you know, you kind of get to a point where you just stop reading comments in general. When I first started, I was like always replying, love talking to people. Then I stopped replying to comments because then it kind of got overwhelming. And then it was like, oh, now there's also videos of you, technically not you, but your face or pictures online. And it, you know, the sad thing is, in order to get those like taken down or even to try and battle them, you have to see them. Most likely you've seen them at some point. And I think that the sad thing is that that always kind of stays with you. It doesn't get easier to know that it's happening. You just become like familiar with it. And that, I feel like people kind of expect that if it happens so often, you know, you should be used to it, but it doesn't become easier. It just becomes something that you, I guess, deal with, which is a sad thing to say.
Yeah, I mean was really horrific. And I know, you know, it's so I wonder if in your sort of conversations with other online content creators who have sort of experienced this, but you know, don't want to speak out because they don't want to put themselves in the line of fire. Like, what are the stumbling blocks here? Like, could you speak about some of your what the harassment you've encountered in retaliation for speaking out against this form of abuse? But also, in turn, I would love for you to hear about how you feel that your sort of speaking out has reverberated and changed within the community, Gibi, and what more sort of needs to be done.
Sure. I have to say, I was really pleasantly surprised with the response to my video. I think it was something that I was so scared of doing, and that I had gotten several pieces of professional advice to ignore it. And that was always our best option. So it felt wrong to speak out. It wasn't something that I was supposed to do. But because I kind of had this support and this backing, it finally made sense to do so. And I really like reading the support that my audience gave me. I think I was just so lucky to have built such a kind audience for so many years before posting a video like this. Their support really like just overwhelmed me emotionally in a really good way. That did make me feel very hopeful. Like, people are good, like they really are, and people want to help and they do want to support. So I have absolutely no regrets about speaking out. I think it was the best thing I ever could have done. And just seeing actual results come from my actions and seeing other people speak out, and so much work that's being put into this topic. And I just kind of want to lean into that. I'm just very proud of everyone, and everyone who's kind of taken their time out of their day to just listen, to leave a comment. Like, it really, I actually do feel quite hopeful, which is nice.
I mean, that's fantastic to hear. And you know, we were so moved actually seeing the comments on your video after you posted it, because I think like you, we were anticipating a very negative response, and you know that did happen, but that was grossly outweighed by this like outpouring of love, and it was really beautiful to see the amount of people that sort of getting behind you. I wonder if you could sort of both speak to what you want to sort of see change to improve the conditions of women creating content that's published online.
Um, Definitely would say, of course, laws put in place for it to be taken uh more seriously instead of just like that it's kind of somebody just, photoshopping things or something like that. I think um, you know, there needs to be uh more just distinct, like, you cannot do this instead, because I fear that people will try to find hoops to jump through uh to, do these sick things to creators online. I would also like just other people to know that uh if you are wanting to speak out, uh you will have support. You will have us right here. You will have a bunch of other people too, but you for sure have these people right here. uh and so if you ever feel fearful, don't, because we are right here, and we will listen, and we know what it is like, so you are not alone in this.
Yeah, it sounds silly, but just like women are just people too. So like
Yeah.
being able to be welcomed into spaces kind of just like without the expectation, like that weight that like women seem to have in our culture and everything. Yeah, I think that that is just something that I'm proud of how things have changed, but it's clear that we have a long way to go.
Fantastic. I totally agree. I would love to open up for questions if we have any from the audience. Nothing's coming through. Don't be shy.
We aren't scary, I promise. We're not.
Well, I think I'd like to end it by giving you an opportunity to sort of say anything about the process of being part of Another Body, the film, and like what that meant for you and um your relation to the I the space of sort of activism against deepfake abuse. Because GB, I know we spoke with you so early on. It's kind of incredible. We reached out to you at the very early research stages of making the project, and we were so grateful and kind of astonished that you spoke with us. And at that point, it would be something which had been a big issue for you, but was so early on that it felt like you hadn't really heard any conversation in the ASMR community sort of about it. Like no one had spoken out about it. And so over that trajectory, we think that our relationship is like mapped onto this huge growth of like activism in there, and seeing you both as sort of part of that community as activists who are stepping up and taking the risk to sort of speak out, has done so much for both women in the sort of public eye, but also private citizens. The effect that you two doing that had on Taylor, who's the subject of our documentary, really sort of emboldened her to kind of be to sort of say what she couldn't say using her real name. And so I'd really like to sort of thank you both for doing that. So I think that's pretty much the end of our talk. Thank you so much again for sort of participating and sharing your insight and wisdom and compassion with all of us at this summit. And yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. There is at least one question that I would really like to answer that is
But
asking what can we what can we do to make our daughters who want to be YouTubers safe online, which is just like an amazing question. And I think it starts with having the discussion that these things do occur and that it is, if they happen to her, that she is not alone. I think that that is something that we see the shame causes so much damage. Um, and just the lack of knowledge. I think that very specifically making sure that you are so conscious of not using your real information, your real name, is something that a lot of I see young people do online using their full name. I can tell where they go to school. I can tell what their siblings' names are. And I think that that kind of information sharing, it could definitely be more locked down. Those are the two pieces of information that I would start with, of course. But it's a struggle, and it is very difficult.
I would agree on that. I support is the most like important thing that can always be offered. I would say that personally, I actually felt nervous and kind of ashamed to first tell anybody in my life that it was happening, because it's kind of an embarrassing topic for some reason. And it's not even us who are the ones who are doing it, but it just makes you feel ashamed in a way, to be like, hey, this is happening to me. And it's also a weird thing to tell people. So you probably end up, closing in on yourself and just thinking it'll go away or something. But I think if it is to happen, support is by far the most helpful thing for me personally that I received, that made me feel like, okay, I can, do this.
Well, thank you again, Jinx and GB, for coming here. Thank you everyone for your questions. We got like a whole deluge of them right at the very end there, and I wish we had more time to answer all of them. But keep the questions coming in the panels that are following this one, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of the summit. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.